Young adult, dark fantasy romance, a magical academy, and necromancy. Let's get into it. Hey darling, welcome back. Boyce here, and on my channel it is my goal to help you find your next book obsession. Here we talk all things fantasy, book recommendations, book hauls, and sometimes just life in general. This is a community for people who understand that book hoarding is a perfectly valid lifestyle choice. Now, as I said, today we are talking about The Bone Witch. I have read the reviews, I have read the first chapter, and now I'm going to tell you everything I think I know about this book before we actually commit to reading the whole thing. So let's dive into this first look at The Bone Witch. If you're new to this series, here's the deal. First Look is where I take books that have been calling to me and do a deep dive analysis before I actually read them. So I'm talking cover breakdown, premise analysis, character predictions, and most importantly, I scour the internet for real reader feedback to find the pros, cons, the trigger warnings, and all the honest takes on what this book is actually about. All of this is to help you and me both figure out if we want it on our TBR. I'm really hoping this series helps you find your next book obsession when you're feeling stuck and don't know what to read next. Now, if you have read this one, please drop your thoughts in a comment below, but keep them spoiler-free for those of us who still have not read it. What I would really like to know is, 1, did my prediction match your experience? 2, what did you really like about the book? And 3, what did you maybe not like so much? All right, bestie, let's start with what drew me to this book in the first place. The cover, because we all know we judge books by their covers, and anyone who says they don't is lying. This cover immediately screams dark fantasy with that beautiful gothic aesthetic. The deep purple and black color scheme creates this ominous, magical atmosphere that immediately drew me in. I love the topography too. That ornate, almost mystical feel to it tells me we're dealing with some serious magic here and not cute or sweet cottagecore magic. The imagery feels very isolating, and I really love the contrast of the dark purple and black with the almost gold tones of the decor around the skull. So really everything about this cover I absolutely love, and I know not everybody is going to love this cover as much as I do, but this one really draws me in. It tells me so much about the genre. It helps me set my expectations, and that is why it is on this list as one of my first looks. Okay, so let me read you the book description so we can get a feel for what the story is going to be about. The Bone Witch, Book 1. A high fantasy memoirs of a geisha, Chupeco's latest excels in originality. Kirkus Reviews. A story of scorned witches, sinister curses, and resurrection, The Bone Witch is the start of a dark fantasy trilogy, perfect for fans of Serpent and Dove and The Cruel Prince. Taya can raise the dead, but resurrection comes at a price. When Taya accidentally resurrects her brother, Fox, from the dead, she learns she is different from the other witches in her family. Her gift for necromancy means that she is a bone witch, a title that makes her feared and ostracized by her community. But Taya finds solace and guidance with an older, wiser bone witch, who takes her and her brother to another land for training. In her new home, Taya puts all her energy into becoming an Asha, one who can wield elemental magic. But dark forces are approaching quickly, and in the face of danger, Taya will have to overcome her obstacles and make a powerful choice. Riveting and atmospheric, The Bone Witch is perfect for readers looking for witch novels for adults and teens, stories with diverse representation and multicultural influences, dark fantasy YA books and series, and original world building and captivating writing. Okay, that sounds pretty great. Let's dive deeper. Now, let's talk about the high-level info on this book. Obviously, we are talking about The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. This is book 1 in the Bone Witch trilogy, and we are looking at, from what I could tell, a young adult fantasy, specifically a dark fantasy. The niches here are necromantic fantasy, Asian-inspired fantasy, a magical academy, magical training, mentorship, and apprenticeship, and coming-of-age fantasy. The average rating is 4.4 on Amazon, which is pretty solid. I'm happy with that. And from what I could tell, the key tropes include obviously necromancy and death magic, obviously a magical training academy, which is really fun, and I always love a good academy story. There is a dual timeline narrative, which creates an interesting dynamic that we're going to get into a little bit later and talk about a bit more. But for now, just keep in mind there is a dual timeline narrative, not just multiple perspectives. It is the same character speaking to us at different times. There also seems to be an enemies to lover romance that develops in later books, so if you do read this, don't expect a romance right away. This seems to be something of a slow burn. Sorry, my grandma texted me. Now, let's talk about the concept. Here's what we're working with. When 16-year-old Taya accidentally resurrects her dead brother Fox at his funeral, she discovers that she is a rare bone witch, or a necromancer feared by society. She's taken under the wing of Michaela, the last remaining Dark Asha, and Taya travels to the magical city of Kian to train as both an entertainer and a powerful magic wielder. Now, as I said before, this story unfolds through a dual narrative. Taya as a young apprentice learning her craft, and Taya at an older age exiled and commanding an army of monsters called Deva, while telling her story to a mysterious bard, which is awesome. Now, dual timelines can be very difficult to do well. From everything I've been reading, I have hope that this will be done well. We're going to get more into that later, but it is very difficult for authors to pull off a dual timeline in an effective way that both creates additional tension and stakes while also not giving too much away and also not confusing the reader. So messing with the timeline is a very, very difficult technique that requires a lot of practice and a lot of understanding of the craft to do well. Now, when it comes to the concept, the key takeaways seem to be about isolation and sacrifice, how society fears what it doesn't understand, the journey from an innocent to a villain. There seems to be a bit about how gender roles can be challenged, and most importantly, that strength comes from accepting your flaws rather than hiding them. In terms of trigger warnings, I didn't really see much because this is a YA fantasy. We've got death and resurrection, obvs. We have violence against monsters, expected. There are apparently mentions of self-harm, so that's the only one I really, really wanted to mention. But from everything I can tell, it seems to be mild. There is prejudice, there is discrimination, there is some gore, and mild romantic elements. But from everything I could tell, there's nothing too intense for a YA fantasy. I just wanted to note it. Okay, let's break down our main character, Taya. On the positive side, she's genuinely complex and grows throughout the story. Her fear of her own powers creates relatable internal conflict. We get strong character development from a terrified girl to a confident young woman, and realistic emotional responses to trauma and isolation. Something really interesting I saw in reviews is that Taya is inspired by Filipino women. So there is a really strong cultural diversity element to this book that is fascinating and adds a wonderful complexity to the story. On the critical side, some readers find her passive in the first half of the book, so that is something to note. But she is 12, so I kind of get it. Her infatuation with Prince Cans can feel kind of juvenile. Her character growth is sometimes overshadowed by extensive world building, and she has limited agency in early chapters as she's guided by others. Again, she's 12, so I think that's fair. For the side characters, the most notable character is actually Fox, her brother, and they have a really strong friendship and really strong dynamic. Michaela, her mentor, is complex with her own tragic backstory that I'm not going to give away because I want that to be naturally discovered throughout the story as you read, if you choose to read this one. There is also diverse representation, including Filipino-inspired characters, LGBTQ+ characters, and body positivity. So there is a well-developed supporting cast with distinct personalities and even a trans character that is represented very respectfully. The negatives are that some side characters apparently felt underdeveloped in the first book. The romantic interests, Kance and Kaylin, felt kind of interchangeable with that was one comment that I saw come up. And supporting characters sometimes serve as plot functions rather than feeling fully realized. I also saw that many intriguing secondary characters got very limited screen time. So the side characters It's kind of hit or miss in the book. I saw a lot of pros, I saw a lot of cons. It's really just going to depend on which of the side characters you resonate with most as you read. Next, let's talk about world building. The world building is where this book apparently really shines. We get incredibly detailed and immersive Eight Kingdoms setting, beautiful fusion of Asian cultures, Japanese, Filipino, Indian, Middle Eastern influences. There's a complex magic system with heart's glass and different ashas, which I can't even begin to dive into in this video. It's a very, very intricate world. There are rich descriptions of clothing, food, and cultural practices, and well thought out political structures with historical backgrounds. The downside is that information density can overwhelm readers. It's sometimes difficult to track different kingdoms and their relationships. Extensive descriptions can slow down narrative pace, and cultural elements occasionally feel surface level rather than deeply integrated. Next, let's talk about the magic system. So the magic system offers a unique take on necromancy that feels fresh with a clear hierarchy of magical abilities. There are interesting consequences and costs for using dark magic. There's a creative integration of magic with entertainment / geisha culture, and the Deva monster resurrection creates compelling stakes. However, some magical rules remain unclear or unexplained from what I could find. The power scaling could feel inconsistent, and the heart's glass concept needs more explanation. The dark magic limitations also aren't always well defined. So the world building and the cultural elements of the story seem very strong, whereas the magic system could perhaps use a little more fleshing out, just based on what I was seeing in reviews. Okay, so what else to talk about? Some additional elements to discuss are that the dual timeline structure creates mystery and tension about Tea's transformation and allows for character development, but it can confuse readers, and the present timeline doesn't advance much in the first book. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying about how difficult dual timelines are to implement, and it seems like there might have been a few hiccups in it, but overall the response that I saw to the dual timelines was very positive. The cultural fusion brings a fresh perspective to fantasy with respectful representation of Asian cultures, but some readers may find it appropriative. While I'm really, really hoping that this is done smoothly, and from everything that I can read, it seems like the approach to cultural fusion was done with immense respect and caution. I don't know for sure until I read it, so when you read it, you're going to have to also tell me what you think about that as well. Okay, let's talk reader feedback. Looking at the reviews, readers consistently praise the gorgeous writing style, calling it lyrical and poetic, which I love. They appreciated the detailed world building and found the Asian cultural influences refreshing in fantasy. Many loved the diverse representation and the unique take on necromancy. These readers were willing to overlook the slow pacing because they found the world immersive, and they found Tea's character development very compelling. More critical readers expressed frustration with the extremely slow pacing, as they said, particularly in the first 70% of the book. They criticized excessive descriptions of clothing, food, and daily routines, feeling that these details overwhelmed the actual plot. Many found the structure confusing and felt that nothing significant happened until the very end. Some readers struggled with the similarities to Memoirs of a Geisha, feeling that it was a little too heavy-handed. And the most common criticism is that the extremely slow pacing with minimal plot advancement really got in the way, as well as excessive descriptive passages about clothing, food, and custom. There also seemed to be a lot of complaints about a lack of clear conflict or antagonistic elements to complete the story. And there was also, as I mentioned before, some confusion about the heart's glass magic system. Okay, so what we're going to do now is explore some of the writing by reading the first couple of pages, because usually you know by the first couple of pages if the writing style is going to appeal to you or not. So what I'm going to do is just read a little bit for you, and we'll see whether or not we like it. If my Kindle will turn on. There we go. Let me be clear. I never intended to raise my brother from his grave, though he may claim otherwise. If there's anything I've learned from him in the years since, it's that the dead hide truths as well as the living. I have not been a bone witch for very long, whatever the stories you've heard, but this was the first lesson I learned. I understand now why people fear bone witches. Theirs is not the magic found in storybooks, slaying onyx-eyed dragons and rescuing grateful maidens from ivory towers. Theirs is not magic made from smoke and mirrors, where the trap lies in the twitch of the hand and the trick of the eye. Nor is theirs the magic that seeds runeberry fields, whose crops people harvest for potions and spells. This is death magic, complicated and exclusive and implacable, and from the start I wielded it with ease. There was never anything unnatural or mysterious about me. I was born in Knight's Cross, one of the smallest villages that dotted the kingdom of Odalia, surrounded by a lovely forest on 3 sides and rolling plains on the other. My only claim to strangeness was that I read fiercely, learned thirstily. I read of the history of the 8 kingdoms, about the 5 great heroes and the false prince. It was here that I learned of the magic-wielding Asha and their never-ending war against the faceless, the people of the lie, practitioners of the dark, sworn to the false prince. Sometimes I would pretend to be the Asha, Taki of the silk, whom the fabled King Maras took to wife, or Nadine of the whispers, who ended the war between the kingdoms of Estera and Denoris with her dancing. You think in the same way men drink, Taya, my father once said. Far too much. Under the delusion, it is too little. But he brought me books from distant fairs and encouraged my clutter of parchment and paper. Some days I would read to him when his work at the forge was done for the day. It was a sight to see him, a tall, muscular man with a heavy beard, reclining in his favorite chair and listening as I read children's fables and folk tales in my high, piping voice. Okay, this definitely has the vibe of a fairy tale. So it's a very unique writing style, and you can tell that it is written well. It's written very formally, so it has, again, that fairy tale vibe to it. And on the whole, it's captivating. It's, it's not something I don't read a lot of stories that have this style. So it's very distinct, it's very unique, and I think objectively well written. So let's talk about the target audience. Who will like this? I think readers who enjoyed Memoirs of a Geisha, but want a fantasy version, will really like this. I think that fans of Leah Bardugo's Grisha trilogy and Sarah J. Maas's works will like this. I think readers who prioritize beautiful prose over fast-paced action will like it, as well as those seeking diverse Asian-inspired fantasy setting. Fans of slow burn character development and world building will like it, I think, and readers who appreciate LGBTQ+ representation will also find themselves happy with the story. So who should skip it? Readers seeking really fast-paced, action-heavy fantasy, those who dislike excessive descriptive passages, and readers who prefer standalone novels over trilogy setups will probably want to skip this. Additionally, fans who need clear conflict and antagonists from the beginning might not like this, or those who struggle with dual timeline narratives or just aren't fond of keeping track of dual timelines, you might want to skip this one. Lastly, I think anyone seeking romance-heavy YA fantasy, you might want to skip this one. Let's talk about my expectations. What am I expecting from this book? Plot-wise, I'm prepared for a very slow building narrative with most action concentrated in the last 20 to 25%. This functions primarily as a world-building novel and character establishment for the trilogy. For the tropes, I'm expecting magical academy training. I want to see a very strong mentor-student relationship. I'm expecting to see cultural developments that go beyond standard fantasy, and the gradual revelation of Taya's path toward becoming an anti-hero. Overall, this is essentially, from what I can take away, a villain origin story disguised as a magical academy tale, with extensive focus on cultural details and character psychology, rather than external conflict. The dual timeline creates mystery about Taya's transformation from innocent girl to feared exile commanding monster armies. This book rewards patient readers who enjoy immersive world building and character studies, but may frustrate those seeking immediate plot gratification or high-stakes, high-paced stories. Success with this book is largely going to depend on reader tolerance for descriptive passages and the appreciation of atmospheric storytelling over action-driven narratives. Okay, so what's my TBR verdict? I'm not going to put this one on my TBR. I know, you might be really disappointed in me, and I'm sorry if you are, but let me explain why. I'm a fan of very fast-paced, action-oriented stories that have world building and cultural building elements to it. So I really like to see, yes, I want to see character transformation. Yes, I want to see character growth. I want to discover the world. I want to have immersive prose. I want all of those things. But it's also very important to me to hold my attention to have action-driven stories. And it seems like this one might be a little too slow-paced for my liking, even though it is objectively beautifully written. So I think this one might go low on my TBR, but if I'm really being honest with myself, this one's probably not going to make it onto my TBR just because of my personal preference for action-paced fantasy. Now, will these first impressions be completely wrong? There's definitely a chance that I got some things wrong in my video. After all, we haven't read the book yet. That's the fun of this series, though. Books surprise us, and sometimes the ones we're the most excited about disappoint us, while the ones we're lukewarm about become new favorites. And hey, if you're feeling brave, pick up a book you've been judging from afar and try your own first impression analysis. Tag me. I love seeing what books are calling to you. And remember, my darling, these are just my pre-reading thoughts. The only way to really know if a book works for you is to read it. But there's something fun about documenting these first impressions to see how right or wrong we can be. If you enjoyed this deep dive into my unqualified book opinions, subscribe for more episodes where I can overthink my reading choices and probably add way too many books to my TBR. Until next time, happy reading. Bye. All right, that's everything for today. Subscribe to find your next book obsession, or give me your thoughts in the comments below because I would really love to know what you think about this video. And you can support me by either clicking the like button or any of the links below. Thank you so much for being here, my darling, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. All right, let's get that edited. God, I hope that audio recorded. Oh.